everyone, welcome to this edition of Weekly Roundup. In Weekly Roundup, we cover the most important news of the past week. My name is Anuj and I will be taking this session. So let us discuss about the news which we will be covering in this session. Today we will be covering 5 main news and 8 quick updates and 1 place in news. In main news, we will be covering the recent India-ASEAN Summit and also the NITI Aayog reports on service sector. In third news, we will be talking about International Solar Alliance Assembly and specifically we will be covering the International Solar Alliance in it. In fourth news, we will be looking into the aspect where China has filed complaint at WTO against PLI Scheme of India. Okay. And in fifth main news, we will be talking about US-China meeting recently. Okay, what are its outcome and why this meeting is important. Okay. In quick updates, we will be looking into the Chief Justice of India, National Biodiversity Authority, Global Financial Stability Report, Stablecoin, Kaibul-Lamjau National Park, Cyclone Motha, 8th Central Pay Commission, and Adaptation Gap Report 2025. In place in news, we will be covering Turkey. Okay, so these are the news we will be covering in this session. So let us move to the first main news. So first news of today is that ASEAN and India Summit has taken place recently. Okay, so in this news, we will be covering about ASEAN, why it is significant for India, and what are the major outcome of this summit. And it is related to GS paper 2, which talks about bilateral, regional and global groupings and agreement involving India or affecting India's interest. Okay, so this is a brief overview of this news. Let us discuss about the ASEAN. Okay, so ASEAN was established in 1967 in Bangkok, Thailand. Okay, it was established by 5 countries. And what are those 5 countries? Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia and Philippines. Okay, these were the 5 countries which have established this grouping. Later 5 more countries joined it. Those were Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia and Brunei. Okay, so recently in this summit, 1 more country has joined it, that is Timor-Leste. Okay, so presently there are 11 countries in ASEAN. Okay, it's an important fact for your prelims. Presently there are 11 countries. Okay, and it is one of the successful grouping after, I think, European Union. The trade between ASEAN members is around 25 to 30%. That means it is a very successful grouping. Okay, so this is a basic about the ASEAN. Okay, let us move forward in this news. So let us discuss about the key highlight of the recent summit. Okay, so these highlights are not that important because it is very rare that UPSC will ask what was the key outcome of the recent summit. But you have to study these outcomes in the overall picture of ASEAN. Okay, first major outcome was that support for ASEAN-India plan for action to implement ASEAN-India comprehensive strategic partnership. Okay, so India and ASEAN have a comprehensive strategic partnership from 2022. Before that, we were having strategic partnership. Okay, so whenever you are writing your main answer, you can write that India and ASEAN have comprehensive strategic partnership. Okay, second, they have adopted of ASEAN-India joint leader statement on sustainable tourism. Okay, and more specifically for maritime cooperation. Okay, lastly, they have planned to host East Asia Summit of Maritime Heritage Festival in Lothal, Gujarat. Okay. So one interesting fact here is that Lothal is also means mounds of death, similar to the Mohenjo-daro. Mohenjo-daro is a Sindhi word, Lothal is a Gujarati word. Okay. So here I want to ask one question. Please write down the answer for that question. What is the first known artificial dock in the world? Okay. Please write down in the comment section that what is the first known artificial dock in the world. Okay. So these are the key highlights of the summit. Let us move to the significance of ASEAN for India. Okay. So first of all, India's support to ASEAN centrality. Okay. Why? Because the global trade is moving from transatlantic to Indo-Pacific region, and ASEAN is situated at the center of Indo-Pacific region. What is the reason behind it? That the trade is moving from transatlantic region to Indo-Pacific region, and ASEAN is in the center of Indo-Pacific region, and it also acts as a key point to India's Act East policy. Okay. So that is first, India's support to ASEAN centrality. Second, about the trade aspect. Okay. So ASEAN India trade in goods and agreement have signed, or this agreement was signed in 2009. Okay. And it came into effect in 2010. Okay. So this agreement talks only about trade. We have a similar agreement for services that was signed in 2014. Okay. So basically we have agreement for trade as well as for services. Okay. But this agreement is going under the review. Okay. So the review process has to be completed by 2025, but I think that it will be completed by 2026, because recently there was a meeting for the review and it was not that successful. Okay. And why that review meeting is going on? Because the trade deficit for India with ASEAN is around 45 billion US dollar, okay, which is a huge amount. And what are the reason for that? That is the issue of rules of origin. Okay, that means there are some products which are being manufactured in China and coming to ASEAN, and coming from there they are coming to India. Okay, that is one issue. Then there are other issues as well, like trade imbalance. Okay, so these are the some issue for which the review meeting is going on. Okay. Third, they have talked about, or the ASEAN is important for counterbalancing China. Okay. ASEAN countries are situated very near to South China Sea. Okay. And there are issues going on the territorial claim on South China Sea between the ASEAN countries as well as the China, specifically Philippines. Okay. So in this, the significance for ASEAN for India is that we can counterbalance the China's growth in the region. Okay. So we have issued a joint statement on maritime cooperation that echoes to uphold of international law in South China Sea. Okay, it is a major aspect for your examination. Okay. Lastly, it is very important for development of India's northeast by the projects like Kaladan multimodal transport project, and projects like India-Myanmar Thailand trilateral highway. Okay, there was UPSC questions on both the projects. Okay, so Kaladan is multimodal transport project is from Kolkata to Sitwe port in Myanmar. From there, they transport good to Mizoram. Okay, so that is for uh, overcoming the challenge of chicken neck. Okay. Second, there is also a proposal for India's Myanmar Thailand trilateral highway. That project is going on. It is from Manipur to Thailand, passing via Myanmar. So this was the first news. Let us discuss the PYQ related to this news. First of all, let us discuss the prelims PYQ. I think this is not clear. Okay, so this is the 2016 prelims question. Okay, the question is, the term regional comprehensive economic partnership often appear in the news in the context of the affair of the group of the countries known as. So option as G20, ASEAN, SCO and SAARC. Okay, so at that time India was discussing in the RCEP. Okay, it was a part of RCEP at that time. India opted out from it in 2019. Okay, so answer will be ASEAN. Okay, and one more question in prelims was there in 2018. Okay, so the question was, consider the following countries. Okay, Australia, Canada, China, India, Japan, USA. And which of the above are among the free trade partner of ASEAN? Okay, this was the question. Okay, if you know about RCEP, you can solve this question. Okay, and in this news we have already discussed that India has signed free trade agreement as well as free service agreement in 2009 and 2014 respectively. Okay, in ASEAN and RCEP, there is a free trade agreement between ASEAN countries and countries such as Australia, Japan, China, New Zealand and South Korea. And we have known that India has also have free trade agreement with ASEAN. So what will be the answer? 1. Australia, 3. China, 4. India and 5. Japan. Okay, so answer will be 1, 3, 4 and 5. C. Okay. So these were the PYQs from prelims. Let us look into the PYQs from mains. So this is a PYQ from 2016 and the question is, evaluate the economic and strategic dimensions of India's Look East policy in the context of post-Cold World War international scenarios. Okay, so you should know about Look East policy, which was started in 1992 and in 2014 it was changed into Act East policy. Okay, and ASEAN is at the center of Act East policy. Okay, so if you know about these facts, you know about these data, you can write this answer in a more specific way. Okay, so these were the PYQ related to the first news. Let us move to the second news. So second news for today is that NITI Aayog has released 2 reports related to India's service sector. So in this news, we will be covering about the service sector of India. What are the major findings of these reports and how you can use the findings of these reports in your answer. Okay. And it is related to GS paper 3, which talks about economic development. Okay. So let us move to the news discussion. First of all, what is the name of the reports? The first report is Insight from GVA Trends and State Level Dynamics. And the second report is Insight from Employment Trends and State Level Dynamics. Okay. Before moving further, let us discuss about GVA, that is Gross Value Added. Okay. So let us understand it by an example. Suppose you have taken a paper from the market and you have taken the paper in 0.5 paise, that is 50 paise. Okay, and you have make a boat out of it, and you have sold that boat in the market at a cost of 1 rupees. So how much value you have added here? You have added value of 50 paise. That is the final product price minus the price of the raw material. Okay, and from this we can also calculate the GDP of a country, that is GVA plus the taxes minus subsidies. Okay, so that's how we can calculate the GDP of a country. Okay, so let us move into the key highlights of the reports. So first highlight is that service sector nearly contribute about 55% of gross value added in India. When compared to the primary and secondary sector, its that accounts for 16 to and 29% respectively. Okay, so you should know about what is primary sector, what is secondary sector, and what is tertiary sector. So primary sector is basically agriculture, fishing, mining. Secondary sector is producing goods by using raw materials from primary sector. Okay, and tertiary sector or the service sector means that providing services like trade, IT, banking. So these are the basics about the primary, secondary, and the tertiary sector. So here is a one paradox. What is that paradox? That although the service sector contribute around 55% of GVA, but it employ only 1/3 of the population in service. Okay, so it is a paradox here. Now coming to the second highlight, that is that it employed around 188 million workers in 2023 and 24, and is the second largest employer after the primary sector. That means after agriculture and allied sectors as well as the mining sectors. Okay, so here when we talked about that paradox, it is clearly visible here. Agriculture or the primary sector, which accounts only for the 16% of gross value added, is the largest employer, whereas the service sector, which accounts for 55% of gross value added, is the second largest employer. Okay, it shows the paradox which we have talked about. Okay, so the third major finding is that it has added 14 million jobs in last 6 years, and it is second to construction. Okay, so that means the construction sector has added the largest job in last 6 years, whereas service sector added the second largest job, that is around 40 million in absolute numbers. Okay, so the other finding is that it act as a labor shock absorber but is divided. What is the meaning that it is divided? It means that the service sector is divided into two services. One is high value services and another one is low value services. So it talks about, the report talks about that the high value services like IT, finance, banking has added very low labor or has very low labor, whereas the low value services such as trade, transport has the high level of jobs in the service sector. Okay, so there is a disparity between high low value services and low value services. Okay, the other finding of the reports are that India's shifts to services remain slower than the peers. That means the countries which are there at our platform or their growth is similar to us, we have added or shifted to services slower than those countries. Okay, moving to the other findings. Let us look into the employment profile which is given in the report. Okay, first is talk about the spatial aspect. It says that this 60% of urban workers are working in service sector when compared to the 20% of rural worker. So there is a difference of about 40% in urban and rural population. Okay, second aspect is about gender. So it says that only 10% of rural women are in services as compared to 60% of urban women. Okay, it shows that in rural areas only 10% of women are related in or working in service sector, whereas in the urban areas around 60% of women are working in service sector. Okay, third, it has shown that education improves the job accessibility, but it also talks that this service sector has largely remained as informal sector. Okay, this is the third major finding. Fourth, which we have already talked, that there is a large number of employees which are working informally in service sector. That is around 87% of population lack social security in service sector. Rural women earn less than the 50% of men wage in the rural areas. So whenever you will be talking about gender equality or role about the education sector, you can write these facts. Okay, and the report also provide a path to solve these issues. Okay, and what are the major points given in these reports? First of all, that formalization of jobs and social protection for informal gig and MSMEs workers. Okay, so we have talked about MSMEs in the last edition as well. Basically, their definition was changed in the recent budget. Secondly, it talks about inclusive access for women and rural youth via skilling and digital tools. Okay. Third, it talks about tech-led skilling for digital and green jobs. Okay. Fourthly, it talks about balanced regional growth through Tier 2 and Tier 3 services hub and state clusters. So whenever you are writing a way forward in your answers, such points can be written in your answer. Okay, so this was the second news. Let us discuss the PYQ related to this news. Okay. First of all, we will look into the 2015 PYQ. Okay. So you have to answer this question. It is a very easy question. The question is that the government of India has established NITI Aayog to replace the. So options are Human Rights Commission, Finance Commission, C, Law Commission, D, Planning Commission. Okay, so this is the PYQ from 2015. Please write down the answer in the comment section. Okay, it is an easy question. You can look into the Google as well. Okay, so second PYQ is from 2014. Okay, if your basic concept regarding primary, secondary and tertiary sectors are clear, you can solve this question easily. So what is the question? So with reference to the sector of the Indian economy, consider the following pairs. So economic activities are giving on the left side and the sector is giving on the right side. Okay. So first, storage of agriculture produce, that is given as secondary, dairy farm, primary, mineral exploration, tertiary, and weaving cloth, it is given as secondary. Okay, so when people were solving this question, two options were very clear. First, that dairy farm is a primary sector. Okay. Second, that storage of agriculture produce is a tertiary sector. Okay, so it is given as secondary sector, it is wrong. Second is correct. And the last, weaving clothes comes under the secondary section, secondary sector. Okay, but the doubt for the student was that does mineral exploration come under the tertiary sector? Okay, because when we talks about exploration, basically it relate to the quaternary sector of the tertiary sector. But the answer given by the UPSC was only 2. That means they have given mineral exploration as mining. Okay, and mining comes under primary sector. Okay, so answer for this is only 2 by UPSC key. Okay, so this was the second main news. Let us move to the third main news for today. So third news is that the 8th session of International Solar Alliance Assembly has recently taken place in New Delhi. So in this news, we will be looking into ISA and what are the major outcome of this assembly. Okay, and it is related to both GS paper 2 and GS paper 3. In GS paper 2, it is related to important international institutions, agencies and fora, their structure and mandate. Okay, in GS paper 3, it is related to sustainable development. Okay, now moving to the discussion. So let us first understand about International Solar Alliance. Okay, so it was started in 2015. Okay, and what it is? It is a global intergovernmental organization. Okay, and it was started by 2 countries. What are those 2 countries? India and France. And it was started at COP21 in Paris. Okay, so this was about the genesis of ISA. It is the largest treaty-based intergovernmental organization from the global south. Basically, global south means the developing and the least developing countries. Okay, and its headquarters is there in Gurugram. And it is the first international intergovernmental organization who has headquarters in India. Okay, so its headquarters is there in Gurugram. There is one more international organization, that is Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure, and that's organization headquarters is there in New Delhi. Okay, these facts are very important for your prelims examination. Okay, and when we talks about membership, there are around 124 members and signatory countries in ISA presently. Okay, so when it was started, so the only countries which were there in, which was between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, can join ISA. The countries between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. But after the 2020 agreement or the amendment, all the UN member states are now eligible to join the alliance. Okay, there was a PYQ related to this fact. We will look into the PYQ after the news. Okay, so what is the aim of ISA? When we were talking about the syllabus, we have talked that the syllabus talks about their aim as well as the mandate of the international organization. Okay, so its aim is to bring the clean, reliable and affordable energy to communities, driving sustainable growth and improving the quality of life. It is the aim of the ISA. And its mission is to unlock 1 trillion in solar investment by 2030, while reducing the technology and the finance cost for solar energy. Okay, so this is the mission of the ISA. Now, let us talk about the collaborative initiative. First of all, the collaborative initiative is Solar X Startup Challenge. Okay, it's provide funds to the startups to improve their working for solar energy. Okay. Second is Star C initiative. It is a capacity building program of ISA. Third, Global Solar Facility. So it basically improve the finance in the regions such as Africa. Last, One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative. And it works on the principle that sun never set. Okay, it is always visible at some part of the world. Okay, so it tries to transfer solar energy from one grid to the another grid, that might be from one country to the another country. Okay, so these are the major collaborative initiative of ISA. Okay, and India plays a very important role in all the initiatives of ISA. Okay, now let us discuss the key highlight of these sessions are that there was a launch of Sunrise initiative. And what does Sunrise stand for? Sunrise stand for Solar Upcycling Network for Recycling, Innovation and Stakeholder Engagement. And it will promote solar waste recycling, green employment and circular economy. It is important because it is launched. Okay, so there can be question about the Sunrise initiative. So second highlight of this session is that small island developing state procurement. Okay, so 16 SIDS joined hand under the ISA World Bank platform for coordinated solar procurement and capacity building. Okay, so small island developing state are very small island on sea which are very near to the sea level. Okay, and they were formally recognized in 1992 in Earth Summit. Okay, lastly, it has released 2 flagship report. Basically they were released of 5 report, but 2 flagship report were also released, and name of the 2 reports was that Ease of Doing Solar 2025 and Solar Trend 2025. So these were the key highlights of the session. Now let us look into the first PYQ is from 2016 prelims. The question is, I think it is not clearly visible. The question is, consider the following statement. The first statement is, the International Solar Alliance was launched at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in 2015. And the second statement is, the alliance include all the member countries of the United Nations. Okay, as we have already discussed that in 2015 when it was launched, only the countries from Tropic of Cancer to Tropic of Capricorn can join the ISA. But later it was amended in 2020 when all the United States or the United Nation, all the United Nation countries can join ISA. Okay, so at that time it was a wrong statement. So answer was 1, but presently both these statements will be correct. Let us discuss a mains PYQ. So it is a question from 2020. Okay, the question is, India has immense potential for solar energy, though there are regional variation in development. Elaborate. Okay, so basically the question is asking about the solar energy in India and how it is varied from one region to another. It talks about the potential, and you can write about the potential aspect and various government initiative for capturing the solar energy. Okay, so this was the third main news for the today. So fourth news is that China has filed complaint in WTO over subsidies under the PLI scheme which are provided by India. Okay, so in this news we will discuss about the reason why China has filed the complaint and about the PLI scheme. Okay, and it is related to GS paper 2 as well as the GS paper 3. Okay, so let us discuss the context here. First of all, China has alleged, okay, that 3 Indian PLI scheme, okay, related to EV and battery provide financial benefit to companies operating in India on domestic value addition. Okay, so that is the allegation put by the China. And what China has said? China has said that these initiative or these benefit provided by the Indian government under the PLI scheme are the violation of agreement on subsidies and countervailing measure of the WTO under the prohibited category. Okay, we will look into the what are prohibited category in the next slide. Okay, and what are those 3 PLI schemes on which the China has put the complaint. Okay, so let us discuss about the PLI scheme. Let us discuss about the PLI scheme. Okay, so it was launched by Indian government to boost domestic production in 2020. Okay, and it provide performance based incentives across strategic sectors. Okay, suppose a sector is there and it gives target, incremental targets, like you have to bring that much of investment or that much of sales, then government will provide around 4% to 6% subsidy. Okay, so for this PLI scheme was launched in 2020. So basically, when it was launched, it was only targeted at 3 sectors, basically EV, API, but after seeing its success, it was expanded to 14 sectors. Okay, and in those 14 sectors, China has alleged that there are issues in 3 PLI schemes. And what are those 3 PLI schemes? The first scheme is scheme to incentivize establishment of giga scale manufacturing capabilities of advanced chemistry cell batteries. Okay, and second is scheme for auto industries which seeks to buttress the manufacturing of advanced automotive technology products. Okay, and the third is scheme to promote EV manufacturing by attracting global EV manufacturers. Okay, even the foreign companies can take the benefits of PLI schemes by registering and manufacturing in India. So these are the 3 schemes on which China has complained to the WTO. Okay, so now we will discuss about the issues of, okay, now we will discuss about the SCM agreement of WTO. First of all, it clearly defines the subsidies by Article 1. Okay, and how does it define? Okay, it defines that a subsidy is a financial contribution by a government or a public body that confers a benefit. Okay, secondly, SCM creates 2 categories of subsidies. Okay, that is prohibited and actionable. Okay, before there was a third category as well, that was non-actionable, but that was removed. Okay, so presently there are only 2 categories of subsidies, that are prohibited and actionable. Okay, in prohibited there are 2 categories of subsidies that are prohibited by Article 3, that are export content subsidies and the local content subsidies. Okay, in export subsidies, where there is a subsidy to promote the export. Okay, and in local content subsidies, when the subsidies is provided to use local content over the global or the outside world content. Okay, the China has filed a complaint regarding the local content subsidies. Okay, secondly, the other category of subsidies are actionable. Okay, so these are not prohibited, but they are subjected to challenge when the other countries feel that these subsidies are hampering the international trade. Okay, it can be through multilateral dispute settlement or through countervailing actions. Okay, so basically in WTO dispute settlement, first the 2 countries try to solve the issue between themselves. If they cannot solve the issue between themselves, then it will goes to the panel. Okay, and panel will give its finding, and if one of the country is not satisfied by the panel report, then it will goes to the appellate body of WTO. Okay, so that is the dispute resolution mechanism of WTO. Okay, now we will look into the PYQs related to this news. So first PYQ is from 2018 mains. Okay, first is that what are the key areas of reform of if the WTO has to survive in the present context of trade war. Okay, so where you have to talk about WTO and how it can become more effective. Okay, and the second PYQ is from 2025 mains. Okay, and its question is, discuss the rationale of production links incentive scheme, what are its achievement, and in what way can the functioning and outcome of the scheme can be improved. Okay, what was the rationale behind this question? As we have discussed that the PLI scheme was launched in 2020 and it has completed 5 years in 2025. So whenever a scheme or government initiative complete 5 years or 10 years, basically questions are coming from that area. Okay, so this was the fourth main news for today. Now let us discuss the fifth main news. Okay, so fifth main news is about that US and Chinese president met on the sideline of Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Busan. Okay, so we will discuss what was the major outcome of this meeting and how this is geopolitically very significant. Okay, and it is related to paper 2, which talks about effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest. Okay, so let us discuss the news. So let us discuss the key outcome of the Busan meet. Okay, so firstly, US has agreed to reduce a tariff which was punishing China for the flow of fentanyl into the US by 10%. So it has reduced tariff on China from 57% to 47%. So it is a major win for China. In response, China has agreed to extend for 1 year pause on export control of rare earth minerals. Okay, so when US put a tariff on China, they have imposed a control on the export of rare earth minerals. Okay, what are rare earth minerals? Basically, rare earth minerals are 17 metallic elements which are very important for industries such as missile as well as EVs. Okay, lastly, US president has dubbed the meeting as G2. Okay, and it was popularized by the American economist C.F. Bernstein in 2005. Okay, now we will look into the implication of this meeting. So let us look into the implication of G2 for world. Okay, first of all, it will hamper the relevance of regional institutions like Quad, AUKUS. Okay, so basically Quad has members like Japan, USA, India and Australia. It was not directly related to China, but it was seen as an alternative to China. On the other hand, AUKUS has countries like USA, UK and Australia. Okay, it was for providing nuclear ballistic missile to Australia. Okay, so these type of regional institutions will get hampered. Okay. Secondly, it shows a shift towards bipolarity. Okay, when the superpowers like USA and China will converge, okay, it will show that the global powers are converging with one another, and it will hamper the multipolarity and will lead to bipolarity. Okay, these are the two implications of G2 for world. When we look into the other implications, okay, it shows that there is dependence on China for products like rare earth minerals. Okay, so the shift identifies that global and American reliance on China's critical minerals and semiconductor supply chains. Lastly, we will look into the implications for India. Okay, so US-China rapprochement could reduce the US reliance on India as a geopolitical counter to China. Also, it can increase the China's assertiveness in the India's neighbor. So these are the some implication of G2 world or the recent meeting between USA and China. Okay, we will look into one PYQ. The PYQ is from 2025 mains. The question is, what are the challenges before the Indian economy when the world is moving away from the free trade and multilateralism to protectionism and bilateralism? Okay, so basically in this article we have discussed about the shift from multipolarity to the bipolar world. Okay, so such types of question can come and you can use the data and the example from these meetings. Okay, so these were the main news for today. Let us discuss the place in news for today. So place in news for today is Turkey. Okay, and what is the context? Context is that a 6.1 magnitude earthquake has hit the Turkey. Okay, so we will look into the features. First of all, look into the map of the Turkey. Okay, its capital is Ankara, not Istanbul. Okay, its capital is Ankara, and its neighboring countries are Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Iran in the east. Okay, Iraq and Syria in the south, and Bulgaria and Greece in the northwest. Okay, and it has bordering seas as well, such as Black Sea. I think it is visible. Then here it is Sea of Marmara, then Sea of Aegean, and then come the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, so these are the four major sea surrounding the Turkey. There can be questions about the placement of these sea in the UPSC prelims. Okay, the major rivers of Turkey are Euphrates and Tigris. Okay, and the highest point is Mount Ararat. Okay, and this region is above Tropic of Cancer. Okay, so this was about place in news for today. Let us move to the quick updates. Okay, so first quick update for today is about Chief Justice of India. Okay, and what is the context? The context is that in exercise of powers under Article 124, it is important, Article 124, it is about appointment of judges in Supreme Court of Constitution of India. President appointed Justice Suryakant as 53rd Chief Justice of India. In this news, we will understand about the appointment procedure of CJI. Okay, so first of all, Union Ministry of Law and Justice seeks the recommendation of the outgoing CJI for the appointment of the next CJI. Basically, the seniority principle is followed in appointment of CJI. And what does the seniority principle means? That the senior most judge, not on the basis of age, but on the basis of the service in the Supreme Court, will be decided as the Chief Justice of India. However, this seniority principle has not been followed 3 times in the past. And in the most important case of Nanda Bharati case, okay, the 3 topmost judges was not selected at CJI or appointed at CJI, whereas the 4th judge who gave judgment in the favor of government was appointed as CJI. Okay. Okay. After Union Minister of Law and Justice puts the recommendation to Prime Minister, and Prime Minister advised the President in the matter of appointment. Okay. So 2 important things. 1, Article 124. Second, the CJI is appointed by President of India. Okay, this was the first quick update. In the second quick update, we will talk about the National Biodiversity Authority. Okay, and what is the context here? That it has released fund to biodiversity management committees in UP and Sikkim. Okay, let us discuss about the National Biodiversity Authority. Okay, so it is a statutory autonomous body under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So it is under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Okay, and it was established in 2003 under the Biological Diversity Act of 2002. And where does it headquartered? It is headquartered in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Okay, and it basically perform facilitative, regulatory and advisory function on issue of conservation, sustainable use of biological resources, fair and equitable sharing of benefit arising out of use of biological resources. Here we will also talk about access and benefit sharing. It is for equitable distribution and usage of genetic resources to the users as well as the providers. Okay, and it is from the CBD, that is Convention on Biological Diversity. Okay, and its framework is provided by Bonn Guidelines and Nagoya Protocol. And India, it is administered by the National Biological Diversity Act of 2002. This was the second quick updates. Now looking into the third news, it is about Global Financial Stability Report. So if you look into the 2016 paper, there was a direct question about the Global Financial Stability Report. Okay, and the question was about the which institute released this report. Okay, so this report is released by IMF, and the recent context is that only that the IMF has recently released the Global Financial Stability Report of 2025. Okay, and what is the purpose of the Global Financial Stability Report? Okay, it's provide a regular assessment of global financial market and identify potential systemic weaknesses before they lead to crisis. Okay, so basically it looks into the global financial market and any potential crisis that can occur. Okay, and its key findings for this year are that there are tightened global financial condition due to various reasons, and role of major geopolitical risk event such as military conflict. Okay, and in this news, the other reports by IMF are also given. Those are World Economic Outlook and Fiscal Monitor. Okay, so three reports are given in this news. One is Global Financial Stability Report, on which there was a question in 2016, and the other reports are World Economic Outlook and Fiscal Monitor. Okay, so this was about the Global Financial Stability Report. Now we will look into the stable coin. Okay, and what is the context? The context is that Japan has launched the world first yen-pegged stable coin. Okay, so this news or the news about the stable coins are repeatedly coming in the newspaper. That's why it become very important for your prelims examination. Okay, so let us understand about stable coins. Okay, so basically these are blockchain based digital currency. Okay, these are not cryptocurrency basically, because cryptocurrency are not linked to other assets. Okay, whereas stable coins are linked to or pegged to other assets such as dollar or fiat currencies. And what is the reason that they are pegged to another asset? To maintain stable value. Because it is often seen that in cryptocurrencies the value of cryptocurrencies changes very rapidly. Okay, so to overcome those challenge or these challenge, that stable coin come into the picture. Okay. Okay. It enable faster, low cost and secure digital transaction, bridging traditional finance and cryptocurrency. So basically it acts as a bridge between traditional finance and cryptocurrency. Okay. And the other example of stable coins are Tether and USD coin. Okay. So this was about stable coins. Now let us discuss about the Kabul Lamjau National Park. Okay, and what is the context? The context here is that the study link land use to water pollution in Manipur Loktak Lake, which share part of its territory with Kabul Lamjau National Park. Okay, so in this news we will understand about the Loktak Lake as well as the Kabul Lamjau National Park. Let us first discuss about the Loktak Lake. It is the largest freshwater lake in northeast India and famous for pamdis. Okay, and pamdis are floating island of vegetation. Okay, and it has been a Ramsar site since 1990 and listed under the Montrex record since 1993. Okay, so what are Montrex record? Basically, Montrex records are a register under Ramsar Convention where it shows that a Ramsar site is ecologically hampered by the humans. Okay, so that was about Montrex record. Okay, and it is there in Montrex record since 1993. Okay, now coming to the Kabul Lamjau National Park. Okay, so it was declared a wildlife sanctuary in 1954 and a national park in 1977. Okay, so WPA, Wildlife Protection Act, came in 1972, under which national parks are declared. Okay, and it is the only floating park in the world. Such types of extreme statements become very important for your prelims examination. Okay, so it is the only floating park in the world, and famous fauna in it are bro-antlered deers, which is also known as sangai, and hog deer as well as otter. Okay, so this was about Kabul Lamjau National Park. Now let us discuss about cyclone Montha. Okay, and what is the context? The context here is that this cyclone has made landfall in Bay of Bengal coast. Okay, basically in Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. Okay, so the meaning of Montha is fragrant flowers in Thai. So the name Montha is given by Thailand. Okay, what are tropical cyclone? Okay, so tropical cyclones are rapidly rotating storm that are low pressure system originating over tropical cyclone, and they are known by various names such as hurricanes in Atlantic, typhoon in Western Pacific and South China Sea, and willy willies in Western Australia. Okay, and the condition required for tropical cyclones are very important. Okay, that are sea surface temperature should be higher than 27 degrees, presence of Coriolis force, and a pre-existing weak low pressure area. Okay, in equator there is no formation of cyclone. That is because there is no Coriolis force on equator. In north of the equator, the flow of the cyclone is counterclockwise, and in the southern hemisphere it is clockwise. Okay, so this was about the cyclone Montha. So let us discuss about the next news, that is Central Pay Commission. Okay, and the context is that Cabinet has approved the term of reference for 8th Central Pay Commission. Okay, so whenever you will be joining into civil services, you will be getting paid by the recommendations of 8 Central Pay Commission. Okay, and it is a temporary body with a chairperson, 1 part-time member and 1 member secretary. Okay, and it will basically consider economic condition, fiscal prudence, cost of non-contributory pension and private pay structure. So basically it will look into the salaries of central government employees and how much they can be increased. Okay, and they have said that it will take effect from 1st January 2026. Okay, so basically if you will be writing exam next year, when you will be get appointed or when you will be getting appointment, you will be getting paid by the recommendation of 8th Central Pay Commission. Okay, so this was about the Central Pay Commission. Now we will look into the adoption gap report of 2025, and the context here is that it has recently been published by UNEP, that is United Nations Environmental Program. Okay, before discussing about the key findings of it, let us first discuss about what does adaptation means. Suppose there is climate change or suppose there is a disaster. Okay, so you will construct or you will try to minimize the effect of the disasters. Those efforts will come under adaptation. Okay, there is another concept as well, that is mitigation. Okay, that means the effort put to resolve the cause of these disasters. Okay, so that is the basic difference between adaptation and mitigation. Okay, now we will look into the key findings of the adaptation gap report of 2025. Okay, so first of all, it has said that developing nation face a adaptation shortfall of 310 to 365 billion per year. Okay, and presently global adaptation finance is only about 26 billion. Okay, so you can see how much we are lacking. Okay, so presently it is at 26 billion, but requirement is of 310 to 365 billions. Okay, thirdly, it talks about that there is an implementation lag. So it says that most nations have plan, but execution and quality remain weak. Okay, and lastly, it talks about Indian scenarios. So India has 2 adaptation funds, that is National Adaptation Fund and State Action Plan. Okay, but we as a country are vulnerable to heat stress, erratic monsoon and coastal flooding. Okay, so this was all in the today's session. So okay, to read more about our other initiatives, you can go to the digital current affairs. There you can also solve the smart quizzes. Thank you and all the best for your preparation.